Welcome to the Life of Being podcast, where we talk about all things life from a healthcare perspective all around the world. I'm your host, Kelly Tan, and in each episode, we'll explore stories, science, and wisdom to help you live well, think deeper, and express life fully. Let's begin. Today, we're excited to be joined by an exceptional guest. We have Dr. Donald Francis joining us from Scotland. Dr. Donald is a doctor of chiropractic, educator, and mentor who runs two associate-based practices in the Scottish Borders. A 2009 graduate of Palmer College in Devonport, Iowa, and a former Army officer, Donald has dedicated his career to the detection and correction of subluxations and to advancing chiropractic in its purest form. He is the creator of Brain-Based Chiropractic, a system focused on delivering extraordinary results, and co-founder of Luminate, where he mentors chiropractors and teams to expand their impact. Driven by a vision for a healthier and more connected humanity, Donald is passionate about preserving chiropractic as a distinct profession rooted in philosophy, science, and art. Dr. Donald Francis, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Kelly. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Excited to dive into your stories and also your train of thoughts. Shall we start by sharing your story in terms of how you came into chiropractic? Why did you choose the Scottish Borders? At what point did you expand? And also at what point do you think that, okay, I want to mentor people so that they can understand what chiropractic actually is?
So I'll give you the brief version. I'm in the Scottish Borders because I married a girl from here. And we've come home. We met and married when I was in the army, and I got into chiropractic through a long-term mentor, a guy called Dr. Jonathan Howard, who passed away about 18 months ago. Gave me my first adjustment in 1977, but I was never a patient under routine care. Very rarely did I ever have a structured care plan as I prescribe now. But as I remember in February 2004, this great decision to leave the army, which I'd been in since I was 17 and I was 30 at the time. It took me nearly 18 months to actually leave because it's not like a job. You can't just resign and you're away 4 weeks later. Anyway, so I decided to leave in February 2004. I deployed to Iraq at the end of May 2004. I had already started applications to Palmer College of Chiropractic at that point. And Iraq really for me was going to be a make or break. Was I going to be a chiropractor or was I going to be a soldier? Anyway, I really enjoyed my time in Iraq. I don't say that lightly. The world is once again descending into chaos and war is a horrible thing. But as a professional soldier, I found it very stimulating. But when I got on the Hercules, the airplane, to get out of southern Iraq, and we used to at that point fly from Iraq into Qatar to get a jet airplane to go back to the UK. I knew at that point that I was leaving. I knew that I was never going back. I then accelerated and to get to America, I had to get visas and borrow money, and I used the last 7 or 8 months in the army after that to plan going to America. And we had a son as well. My wife was pregnant the whole time I was away. But I'm very pleased that all happened, and I'm very pleased I'm a chiropractor. I was very happy. I was a very happy soldier. I enjoyed it until one day I didn't, and now I'm a very, very happy chiropractor. So sometimes I think the universe brings us. So I went to Palmer, graduated from there after 4 years or so. We came back to the Scottish Borders. I looked around at the scenery here, and we're quite remote. We live, really from where I'm sitting right now in my home office. We're in the middle of the countryside. So there was an option potentially of an associateship, but I knew if I was going to open up in the same area that it would cause a lot of friction. So I chose to open up my practice from the start without doing. I was 36, so by that point, fast forward 6 years from the actual decision to leave to actually opening. By the time I'd got out and gone to America for 4 years and come back and passed my test of incompetence with the General Chiropractic Council and stuff. So I opened up, and practice was was hard. I wish I would only go back and I would give two pieces of advice to myself. The first is I would get a coach right from the beginning, not trying to reinvent the wheel every time, someone else has been there. And the second one was I made it a very personality driven practice. It was all about Donald. My office walls, the clinic walls, they just screamed everything about me. So when it came time to take on my first associate, I had to effectively de-Donald the practice. I had to make it much more about chiropractic. So the two bits of advice I would give is one, I would get a coach actually from before I opened. And the other was that I would have made it more about chiropractic and less about myself. But there you go. That's a very potted history. So fast forward 16 and a half years. I'm now 52. We have 3 children. We have 3 associates, 2 practices. Last year we did £1 million, which it's about $1.3 million, I think, in the middle of nowhere. And you asked how I got into coaching. Well, first, before I got into coaching, I actually got into teaching chiropractic. As I was going around teaching chiropractic, which in itself was an evolution. I've probably now taught in excess of 30 seminars. And much like chiropractic, you get better and better and better at the message and the idea and stuff like that. I think that the slide pack hasn't changed that much, but the seminar is completely different. I discovered there were lots of people really, really struggling. And I love mentoring people, which is one of the reasons I have associates. And I was very sorry at the state of chiropractic. The average UK chiropractor was seeing relatively few people. And chiropractic, which in my life is amazing, was having a very small impact on society. I know through mentors that I've had, they've helped me have a much bigger impact. So I thought, well, I would like to help people who are struggling have a much bigger impact on their community, because there is so much to be said. If people choose a chiropractic way of life, their life is infinitely better. Their chance of avoiding drug surgery is massively increased. There are lots of studies that show that. And more importantly, they just live a much better life. I couldn't actually imagine the quality of my life without chiropractic. My mother, my family, my business partner and I, Laurie, our vision is really to help people elevate themselves. And when they've elevated themselves, this will have a much bigger impact on humanity, where chiropractic's playing really small.
That's amazing how you're storytelling everything, and in between I already have questions popped up and then you answered immediately. Like there's 2 questions I want to ask. So I'm like writing lots of notes. That's good. What do you think is the difference between chiropractic in the States and chiropractic in UK? And was it a shock when you came over taking a test and be like, oh, it's so different? Or is it pretty similar?
Okay, let's deal with the elephant in the room. Chiropractic, as discovered by D.D. Palmer and developed by B.J. Palmer, is not taught widely anymore as a separate and distinct profession. Many people, many colleges, particularly around the world, have elected to choose a path seeking integration within the broader healthcare arena. Now, that's a noble quest. Wouldn't it be lovely if chiropractic sat on the same pedestal as medicine, for example? And I get that. The problem is, chiropractic is different, okay? Chiropractic is different. And I'll confess, one of the other mistakes I made when I graduated was I was a conservative army officer. And interestingly enough, if you go back in my personal history, I've always been a bit of an individual, but 15 years in the British Army, and I was quite institutionally molded. I was concerned and worried about being different. And so, when I graduated, I also, I went to Palmer. We'll go that way direction in a minute. I wrote letters to doctors and put language in medicalese and all the rest of it, and that didn't help me at all. They didn't send clients to me. They didn't respect me anymore. But one day, I don't think it was a single event, but over a course, a series of events, the lights came on, and I was very proud to be different. Now I think being different is our unique selling point. We're not part of medicine. So in America, that split between, let's call it traditional chiropractic along the original thought and mindset of the developers, D.D. Palmer, B.J. Palmer, and so on, is still taught in a handful of colleges in America. Palmer, where I went, sort of sits on the fence a little bit. They do teach subluxation-based chiropractic, but they also teach a lot of rehab and a lot of sports chiropractic and so on. And I'll be really honest. I really don't mind if anybody within the chiropractic space chooses to be a sports chiropractor or do all of that. The only question I would have for them is if we're not unique, if we're just competing in a slightly more spinally orientated version of physiotherapy, what will be the point in having us as a separate and distinct profession in a generation or two's time? Osteopathy in America is virtually extinct as a manual therapy. Because they crossed over. In the UK, the colleges here are very much in the so-called evidence-based arena. And that's a lot of nonsense, really. Every single adjustment that I give everybody is evidence-based because over the last 17 years, nearly in practice, I have, adjusted thousands of patients and seen many, many, many extraordinary results. In that process of carrying out, a couple of 100,000 adjustments and made many mistakes, by the way, I have evolved and now, evolved into what I teach as brain-based chiropractic, which is an amalgam of various techniques if people want to understand that, but it's more of an idea. I don't think BJ would have necessarily liked my technique because he was very into his method. And we're very guilty of this in chiropractic, that we've got all these different tribes. We've got Gonsteaders and we've got sports chiropractors and we've got Thompson and we've got activated people and we've got upper cervical people and we've got SOT people and all these little tribes form. And the biggest thing that we have is judgment. So, I'm looking for, if someone's looking for a chiropractor on social media, they look for a chiropractor just like them. They don't look for, whereas actually there's a great quote by a guy called Sid Williams, who founded Life College in America. And it's, chiropractic is like gravity. It works whether you believe it or not. So all chiropractic works, but I don't think it works equally. I know that because I've had 12 associates. So same building, same patient base, same technique base, and yet we get wildly different results with the same patients. So the chiropractic, in my opinion, is a philosophy. I'll back that up in a minute, which has a science and multiple forms of the art. If you or I were to sit down and draw a still life picture of a bowl of fruit, the fruit is going to be identical to both of us, but how we see it and how we transfer that onto paper is going to be really different because it's an art form. So, the elephant in the room of chiropractic is we are a divided profession, and it's the biggest division is that between those who see us as a separate and distinct profession with our own language, philosophy, and those who would like us to be more considered within, let's call it the medical world, for example, and are happy to sacrifice our language and uniqueness to make that. I'll just give you a quick example. In our town, there is a medical doctor who offers acupuncture, okay? So let's understand acupuncture. It's been around for several thousand years, originating in the Far East. And there are slightly different disciplines, be it through Korea, China, or wherever. This doctor has a medical degree and has attended a few weekend seminars in dry needling. And he is saying that he's doing acupuncture. This is not acupuncturists who've gone through years of training using acupuncture philosophy. This is a guy who's looking at treating pain by throwing needles into areas of pain. It's a very different philosophy. As we cozy into the medical profession, where are they going to see us? Somewhere in and around manual therapy at a level roughly equitable to physiotherapists mainly. I don't think that's where we are. We are something totally different. I have clients who seek my help for mental health, blood pressure, kidney failure, thyroid failure, heart disease, back pain, headaches, neck pain, migraines, menopause symptoms. Those are what they seek us for. All I'm doing is making their brain more coherent so that it can run the body better, and the inborn intelligence that exists in all of us. And I think that's where we should probably go in a second, helps them to get better. Because, no cut on my body, no bruise, no graze, no broken bone. I've broken 3 bones in my life. They've all healed. We're designed to heal. So that's quite a long-winded answer, but I hope we've covered a lot of bases there. I don't hold on to chiropractic because I'm a traditionalist and I'm worried it'll die, and I want to keep it special just for that reason. I hold on to it because it's totally different. What we offer, you can't get in medicine. There isn't, if you're looking at a woman say 52 years old, she's really struggling with the menopause. What is the medical solution? Well, it's to put her on HRT. What is our solution? Well, it's to adjust her and give her some diet and lifestyle advice. Whether she takes the advice or not is entirely up to her. What is the outcome? Well, the outcome is that she's going to have a much better menopause than she would do if she didn't seek a chiropractor. It's not a treatment for the menopause, but as the brain and body become more coherent and more adaptable, they live a better life. There isn't any alternative to us in that respect, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes. That makes a lot of sense. It makes sense for people who already understand what chiropractic is. How would you explain chiropractic to, say, the evidence-based people, or even just in general? Like, how do you explain
Okay.
it?
So 53 years ago, approximately, I was conceived. A single little sperm from my dad and a much bigger egg from my mum. And they mixed and made a single strand of DNA. And within 24 hours, that single strand of DNA was two identical strands of DNA. And within 4 weeks or so, I was a big ball of cells, pretty divided and starting to specialize. Some were becoming nervous tissue and some were becoming other things. But every strand of DNA in every single cell was identical. I'm now 100 trillion cells, and I have an identical strand of DNA in every single one of those cells. Some of them turn on bits that become eyes, and some turn on bits that become skin and lung and heart and other things like that. And I probably fought off somewhere over 100 colds in my life, broken bones, skin cuts, grazes, and other viruses and other nasty things. And all of that was done because in that single strand of DNA is all the information required to equip my body to do that. But as I go through life, I adapt to multiple stressors, be they the 20 years I had as a smoker, all the red wine and alcohol I drank when I was younger, be it the rugby that I played, be it the death of my father when I was 6 years old, be it you've moved countries, how stressful is that? Be it, so that's mental stress, chemical stress, physical stress, right? And each one of those stressors is written down on my nervous system. As my nervous system adapts, it causes the functionality of my body to change. And we can feel much of those changes through the spine. We call those changes in the spine subluxations. Where I would differ slightly from early chiropractic philosophers is they would say the subluxation is the cause of dis-ease. I sort of agree with that. I actually think the subluxation is the adaptive response to stress, and it's the inability of the brain to make changes to that adaptation that causes the long-term disease. So as we go through more and more stressors, our body changes and adapts more profoundly. And the more stressors we go through, the more profoundly we're changed, the less able we are to adapt to our environment. So with chiropractic, what we're trying to do is to remove those adaptive stressors, remove those subluxations, and make the body function and operate more efficiently. Now, I'm 52 and I'm fitter and healthier than I've probably ever been in my life as a result of chiropractic and diet and lifestyle changes. That said, whatever anybody does to me, they're improving the operating system on a 52-year-old. And you can never undo the last 52 years of my life and all the stressors that have happened. You know, I don't look like I did when I was 22 anymore. I mean, very recognizable. My face hasn't changed that much, but you can see that I don't look like I'm a 22-year-old anymore. But I certainly can go to the gym and I can run and I can work more hours and I can do all of that. So chiropractic is about really improving nervous system function predominantly by using the spine as a bunch of levers, putting force into those levers and changing the nervous system. I mean, every time you do an adjustment, it's impossible for the brain not to realize that that's happened. If the adjustment happens to be in the correct place and with the correct amount of force, it's impossible for there not to be an improvement. There is nobody that can't improve if they have a better functioning spine. Every part of our nervous system, apart from the 12 cranial nerves, goes through our spine. I'm a cranial chiropractor, so I've done a postgraduate qualification in cranial, so I look at the cranial vault as well. And not just those cranial nerves. Everything in our body goes back to our brain. Hence my course that I teach called Brain-Based Chiropractic, which I'm really excited to say we've just finished the online version. So that's going to be available
Oh, that's amazing.
soon.
Wow.
And for people like you who've done our course, that will be at a reduced fee as well. It'll be more meaningful for those who've done the course.
Mm.
But so one thing I can guarantee is every client who gets off my couch or gets off my adjusting table is at what we call a state of ease. It's in this state of ease that their body starts to function. Early chiropractors and how they described it when somebody's adapted and not functioning properly, they referred to it as a lack of ease or dys-ease. Now, some of the people who within our profession who don't who want to see us shifting more into that sort of sports medicine side of things, they removed that hyphen and they accused us of trying to, treat disease. And they refer to writings of the time of D.D. Palmer in the 1890s and early 1900s. Very quickly, those guys evolved from those early sayings. So different people who attack us often take snapshots of different parts of our history and try to club those of us in 2026 who are still adhering close to the principles of what they were. The body is designed to heal. So let me just say, this is how I explain it to lay people. So a new client who comes into our clinic, they've never heard of chiropractic. In fact, their whole lives, they've thought of their health as coming from outside in. They had, their headaches are because of a lack of paracetamol, not because of their adaptive capacity to the stressors. I will say, Kelly, do you agree you're designed to heal? Yes. When I was in Iraq in 2004 and the outside temperature was 50 degrees centigrade, what was my internal temperature? 37. When I was in the South Atlantic, close to Antarctica in 2000, and the outside temperature was minus 20, what was my internal temperature? It was about 37. So we're designed to heal and we're designed to regulate. But then I'll pose a question to you, Kelly. If we're designed to heal and we're designed to regulate, why aren't I healing? Why aren't I healing? And the honest answer is, I'll come at you with another question. If we're not healing, what system runs our body? I hope you're going to say it's your brain and spinal cord. Through your nervous system. Sorry, it's your nervous system through your brain and spinal cord. I beg your pardon. And if we're designed to heal and we're not healing, perhaps there's a problem with how your brain is understanding your body and therefore responding to it. If we just think of back pain, what's happened is our brain and spinal cord are congested through adaptations. So if we can remove that congestion, if we can get the nervous system operating, I refer you back to the first question, are we designed to heal? And the answer is absolutely. So I hope that there's a reasonably concise way of answering that question.
I think that's a really good way to explain how innate intelligence works in terms of your body's designed to heal. And once you understand that, okay, doing all those things helps. But at the same time, chiropractic is not treating anything. It's just removing interference. So that's a really, really good way for you when you're explaining this. You did mention in terms of like the success you had in a rural area in the Scottish border. What do you think, what do you know is your number one key ingredients into your success that you had, say, last year per se? What do you think is the number one key ingredient?
Number one ingredient is integrity. Okay. Honestly and truly, most chiropractors that I coach and teach and mentor, and even if I reflect back to myself, I'm a very evolved person, are frightened of telling the truth because they're frightened people won't like them. So let's take I want to talk about a client last week. Came back into care. Okay. First time they've been back in 6 years. Pre-COVID, they left. Over that 6 years, so when she was in care the first time, we had a slightly different practice style, smaller care plans. And those smaller care plans were not given out of a desire to tell the truth. They were given out of a desire to people please. I was giving smaller recommendations of care because I was frightened if I told the truth, people wouldn't like what I had to say. So if somebody comes to see me now, whatever age they are, I will absolutely tell them the truth. Let's give it, Laura, I said, Laura, you are 35. You have been in on-off back pain now for the last 20 years by your own admission. How long do you think it's going to take for you to get better? I can get better? Yeah, of course you can. You're 35. That's a woman's absolute prime. Yeah. About a year? Yeah, about a year. I agree. But let's just focus on 4 months for now. Is that okay? Great. So We then discussed her life. She, over the last 6 years of her not being in my life, she's got divorced, she's got 2 children, she's a single mum, she's changed jobs, and that's a lot of stress to absorb. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she slowly got worse and worse and worse. And I said, what's going to happen to you if you do nothing? And she said, oh God, I'd hate to imagine it. I'll be like my mum, is what she said.
Mm.
And her mum, her mum is really in a lot of pain at a relatively young age, I think late 50s. Okay. So I said, well, you've got a choice. You're going to go from 35 to the end of your life. You're either going to go getting better or getting worse. So I'd like to get better. I'd like to. She's restarted her life, a new man, new job, new everything. So I said to her, you can be better, but it's going to take time and it's going to take an investment, and you can heal. Now, that frightens a lot of people because when they graduate, they've got a lot of debt and they don't value the adjustment. And so they talk it small. And the worst case scenario is, let's do a couple of treatments. Some people use the word. I don't use the word treatment. It's banned in my practice, and see how it goes. And that's just shock horror, because the last person who cured anybody in the Christian philosophy was Jesus Christ. Okay. And he was crucified for that. In Eastern philosophy, I don't know where I would go with that, but I think Western philosophy has probably had enough exposure. People could understand that. Healing takes time. If I want a 6-pack on my stomach, I'm not going to get it in 2 visits. I'm going to get it over months of exercise and diet and nutrition. Healing is going to take months of repetitive motion to your spine, cranium, nervous system, pelvis, and you looking at your diet and nutrition. That's not my job. That's your job, but I'll give you advice. So number 1 is to tell the truth. Okay. Number 2 is to get really good at what you do. Now, I'm going to be counterintuitive. Okay. I teach technique. Brain-based chiropractic is not really a technique. It's actually an amalgam of multiple techniques. It's more of a thought process and understanding how the brain adapts to stress and how that does that in a predictable way, and how we can deal with it in a predictable way. But most chiropractors, young chiropractors, don't need more technique. Okay. What they need is a better understanding of what they're doing, use the technique and tools they already know to get the best out of it. A lot of young chiropractors, and you may have done this yourself, they graduate, they see that their education has been relatively limited, and they go shopping like supermarket sweep. And in the first 2 years of graduation, they do about as much technique as they can fit into their box. And before they've actually assimilated the technique that they have learned from the last seminar, and then they'll say, oh, I've done Gonstead activator, I've done this, but they've done it, but they haven't assimilated it. Okay. So most of us don't need more technique. What we need to do is actually learn how to do what we know already better. I've said to you, the biggest single thing we do is communicate with integrity. The next best thing we do is give a really, really good adjustment. And the third one is we understand our boundaries. What are our boundaries? I can't fix anybody. They're fixing themselves. When they leave my office, they completely own their entire set of habits. It was their lifestyle that caused the problem and their inability to adapt to it. And I might pose the question to them, are you going to change your lifestyle? And they say, no, I'll just pay you. And I have a couple of people who do that, but I'll keep that conversation live. Are you going to change your lifestyle? Because I'm happy for you to just for me to keep adjusting you. But I'm going to make a bold statement. You cannot out adjust the stress load. Okay. If somebody is living a suicidal lifestyle through their diet, thoughts, and exercise, or lack of it in all 3 capacities, you can adjust them, but it's like trying to fill a bath with the plug out. It's not going to happen. You'll keep putting it in, but it's going to keep leaving just as fast. So, there are problems practicing where I am. I've got to live with all my early mistakes, i.e., I've got to walk through my local small town past extinction. I don't avoid them. I just say, hi, Bob, how are you? It's great to see you. And they'll say, hi, Donald, how are you? And it doesn't matter. I'm a very changed person. I do know that there are people within our community who avoid us because we do require them to come through a care plan. Then a care plan is just a mapped out journey that takes you from where you are to where you want to go. And there are people whose values in themselves sit in the quickest, cheapest fix possible to keep them going on their lifestyle journey. And that's fine. That is their values. We don't try and please everybody. We don't try and change ourselves to fit into anybody else's understanding. We offer what we offer. And if people want it, they can have it. And if they don't want it, there are other chiropractors, other therapists, and in Britain, our completely free at the point of use National Health Service, which can give them as much analgesics as they can stick through their mouth, but it ain't fixing the problem. The advice that I would like to leave everybody is don't do this alone. Okay, get a coach. All right. When I go back to, I started in 2009. I was 36. I had visited hundreds of practices. I still recommend every student do that. Go and visit as many practices as you can. While you're a student, most doctors will let you in. They're not feeling any competition. They will give you the benefit of it. And go and see as wide a group of chiropractors as you can, different technique systems, different philosophy bases, and find what resonates with you. Okay. Then get a coach. I didn't get a coach until 2011, 18 months after I started practice. Every elite sports person in the world has a coach. Even the best tennis player in the world has a coach. How can you teach the best tennis player in the world to be better? And the answer is you just coach them to be better. Okay. Now, I am a coach and I welcome people to come and coach with me, but only if I'm the right person for them. We have an interview and you have to fit what we offer to be accepted by us, but also we have to fit what they're offered to be accepted by them. And there are lots, in fact, it's a very crowded market, the coaching market. Everybody wants to be a coach the second they're successful. But get a coach and don't do it alone. I would even recommend associates get coaches, to be honest, because the only person in this world that is going to make you successful is you. All right. And, find somebody within the chiropractic space. And when you're very successful, you can get a coach from outside the chiropractic space, somebody who's just going to get the best out of you. And just remember, that lovely old saying, if it has to be, it's up to me. And that is so true. Everyone's success is down to their own drive, their own thought processes. So central to my coaching my coaching philosophy is working on the person first, your thought processes and what you do. Once at the same time, but of less important is working on the do. So working on the person is working on their be, working on their self. Then the do is how you do your adjusting, how you do your day one, day two, how you do your communication, how you do your reviews, how you do your marketing, how you do all of that. And if you get those two right, then you will have unbridled success. But the benefit of having unbridled success is that you will have a significant impact on humanity. And that's my goal.
Can I add a question to that?
Sure.
What criteria or how would you discern that person is something that's suited for you, or what would someone need to look for when they're looking for a coach? Maybe that's a better question.
Okay, so within our business, within our coaching businesses, many of my friends have chosen to go into coaches who are specifically business orientated. They're business owners. The philosophy doesn't matter. That's okay. I coach business too. Absolutely, for me, somebody who wants coaching must be coachable. That means they must be humble enough to look at their lives and look at where they can improve. I don't want to create mini me's, okay? That means that I don't want hundreds of thousands of Donald wannabes around the world. I want, if Kelly Tan were to coach with me, I want to help Kelly be the best version of Kelly. So our coaching philosophy is very much looking at how somebody who comes with us can look at their own life, look at their thought processes, look at how they think about the world, how they think about the body, how they think about chiropractic, how they think about their success, and work on that, and then help them derive the systems that are going to support that. Somebody listening to this might chime with us. So we do offer students to join our coaching, our group coaching, and it's not free. It's nominal. It's £20, which I think is about 25 euros or about $28, okay, a month. Why do we charge that? Well, because if it's free, people don't turn up, they don't value it. Yeah. And that little small amount of money is enough to make them pay attention. Do we make any money off it? No, hell. We're still helping people and they are going to turn up. But if it's free, they're not going to show up.
When you pay attention, isn't it?
Yeah. So we offer group coaching. That's very powerful, actually, because not only do they get the benefit of Laurie and I coaching, they also get the benefit of the rest of the group. We offer one-to-one coaching, which is our prestige. We have 2 levels of one-to-one coaching, and that's our prestige service. And that's for people who really want to change their lives. One of our he's an associate. He was plateaued and he wanted, and over the last 4 months of our coaching relationship with him, he's completely revised how he thinks about chiropractic, and in turn, how he thinks about himself, and in turn, how he thinks about his recommendations. Practice for him is now much easier. He's very honest. He gives people the truth, and he's watched his practice go up by 50% from 80 to 120 a week, and he's so much happier in himself. So and for him, the sky is the limit. This guy, I'm certain, will go on one day to have a great impact on life and society. Okay.
With that said, how can people reach out to you then if they're interested in knowing more about what you offer?
Listen, the easiest way, I'm very findable on social media, Instagram, Facebook. Our email address is hello@luminate.net. And if you reach out to that or go on www.luminate.co.uk, you can book a discovery call. And I'm happy to speak to anybody on that discovery call and just see if we are a right fit. But listen, if we're not the right fit, I actually know of probably 20 to 30 people in this space and know what the different nuances are. My goal is to watch chiropractic elevate humanity. It's not for me to get as many customers as I can get. The most honest way of me going about that is to actually say, listen, I don't think we're the right fit because I don't think I'm going to offer you what you're after. But actually, why don't you try this man or this woman who I think will probably be a better fit for you? And putting people there. And that's what I do with my patients or my clients. If somebody comes in and they're after something that I don't sell, yes, I try through intelligent conversation to lead them to understanding chiropractic because it's how I see the world. But if they're not looking for that, my goal is to actually make sure that they're in the right place for them, and not just to just leave them sitting in the same problem they were in before.
That's exciting, and that's super, super thankful, as we talked about in terms of you sharing your story. Is there anything else you'd like to share to the listeners before we wrap things up for you?
In your hands, you have the power to change every life you ever meet. The 4 most important words that a chiropractor can say to anybody, in my opinion, is I can help you. And the honest answer is you can't cure cancer. You can't cure back pain. You can't cure neck pain. You can't cure any of those things. But anybody with any of those things will live a happier, healthier, more fulfilled and more connected life under your care than they would do if they weren't. And I think if you hold on to that, a quote from our book, The Wisdom of 33 by Dr. Rebecca Vickery, I've never seen anybody who gets the big idea have a small practice. And that's true.
That's a super good way to end and wrap up the podcast there. I'll leave all your information into the description. And then if anyone's interested, reach out to Dr. Donald, super nice guy. And I just love how this thing's unfolding. I know there's so many more questions we have in our head, but we'll leave that for the next time.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Donald, and hopefully we will see you around real soon.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Life of Being podcast. Let us know what is your one key takeaway from this episode. And if this conversation inspired you, share it with a friend who might find it helpful today. Until next time, take care of your health and take care of your being.